there's a there's a certain kind of silence that enters your body when you hear that someone you love, someone real, someone whose voice is familiar, someone whose messages still sit unread on your phone, might have cancer. It doesn't crash into you, it kind of seeps. It's not the kind of pain that announces itself with screaming or sobbing. It's quieter than that, more physical. It lodges somewhere just behind your ribs, as if your body already understands something your mind hasn't found the words for yet. And in that moment, that exact moment when those words are said out loud, everything else inside you rearranges itself. All the small complaints that felt enormous only hours earlier, the feeling of being misunderstood, the ache of wanting to be seen, the quiet panics about not being enough, not being where you're supposed to be, not being successful enough, not being as loved as you hoped, suddenly feel like toys scattered across the floor of a house that might be burning. And they don't disappear, no, but they stop being heavy, not because they were never real, but because they were never this real. There's a hierarchy to pain that you don't fully understand until life throws something sharp into the room, something that reminds you with brutal clarity that some things are actually fragile, actually permanent, actually irreversible. And this might be one of them. That's all I can think. That's all I can think right now. This might be one of them. And I didn't feel guilt then. I didn't feel ashamed of how much space my own sadness had taken up. I just felt stunned by how far I had drifted from what actually mattered, and how loud I had let everything else become in the meantime. There's a difference between pain and noise, between wounds and narratives, and I had been drowning in the latter without realizing it. When someone you love might be seriously sick, the illusions you've been living inside, the carefully tended grief, the spirals that felt like personality traits, the curated suffering you carried around like identity, they dissolve instantly, quietly, completely. And all you're left with is this raw, trembling clarity. I've spent so long inside thoughts that kept me emotionally busy. I've spent days inside loops of insecurity, nights trying to diagnose the ache inside my chest, weeks believing that if I just untangled everything correctly, I'd finally feel okay. But none of that prepares you for a sentence like, she might have cancer. She might have cancer. None of your self-awareness softens it. None of your emotional vocabulary protects you from it. It just lands like a heavy door being closed inside you. And suddenly everything that felt urgent, all the questions I was demanding the world to answer, all the wounds that I was waiting for someone to acknowledge, faded into the background. Because now all I want is for her to be okay. And that single desire makes everything feel laughably small. I think what shocked me the most was how quickly that shift happened. 1 hour I was deep in thought, nursing some frustration I've probably repeated to myself 100 times in 100 different ways. And the next I was just quiet. Not healed, not strong, just quiet. And in that silence, I began to see how much time I've spent trying to make sense of pain that I may have already outgrown. How much of my energy has gone into defending the sadness I thought I had to keep proving. How many hours I've lost rehearsing emotions that in the face of real loss means nothing. And I hated that it took this to remind me, because the truth is, I've known this before. I've known someone who had cancer. I've known what it feels like to sit at the edge of not knowing, to feel the floor shift beneath you when the word cancer enters your life, to watch someone you love be reduced to test results and treatment options. And yet, I still forgot. I still drifted. I still let the noise take over. Until now, of course. Until this familiar fear walked back into the room, quiet, uninvited, and unreasonably calm, and placed its hand on my shoulder again. I don't know what's going to happen. We're still in that limbo phase, the space where it might happen or it might not, that place where you keep refreshing your belief in miracles, but also silently start preparing your heart for whatever's next. But something in me has already changed. That's for sure. Even if it turns out okay, and God, I hope it does. I don't want to forget this shift. I don't want to fall back asleep. I don't want to keep bleeding over things that didn't even cut me. I don't want to keep mistaking my distractions for depth. Because what this reminds me, not in theory but in my body, is that life is fragile in a way we keep pretending it isn't. And I don't want to keep building a personality out of grief that isn't mine to carry. I don't want to keep narrating the pain that I don't even feel anymore just because I've grown used to the sound of it. I want to be here now for the people who matter, for the life that's still breathing around me, for the seconds I still get that someone out there in the world might not. This wasn't the kind of wake-up call I wanted, but I'm listening. And I'm not letting this one go, not again.